Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope everyone had a good day. Very hectic day for me. Trading was pretty easy. Just a lot of stuff happening still with the internet. Um, I think I resolved it. It was just the optical cord, or not the optical cord. I keep saying that the fiber wire going from our box outside of our house into our, I guess, like our house, was either tangled or it wasn't. It might have been frayed, or just completely disconnected. But they were able to solve that. Um, and yeah, guess it should be resolved. Hopefully, I don't have any issues moving forward. But yeah, just want to chat really quickly about what I took today, what I see going forward. Obviously, the big short is still in play. I'm just kind of waiting until like that August time frame. I'm just keep repeating myself with that. Not really going to do too much into that one until we start to either kind of move back up into these upper gaps and they look weak there, or if we, just start to kind of fizzle out near the highs and just remain stagnant near the highs, I'll take a couple ads on that. But I don't want to add at these on these sell-offs like this, right? That's why a big focus for me today was Tesla. Big move down from the close, right? We ended up closing at 315ish, right? We ended up moving all the way down to 290, 291 for a 7% move. That's really big if you guys don't know. So naturally, I'm not going to be looking for shorts off of this one. If I am going to short, I'm going to let it pop first, try to get to a significant level, and then try to take the lower high off of that, or a rejection off of a gap fill or a big daily/weekly pivot. Not going to just short the whole. I think that's foolish. So I was actually really interested in a long here. Right away, right after the after-hour session from Friday, it was an early close, right? We saw some pretty good stopping power kick in right around 290, right? I usually don't pay too much attention to these, but very key spot here where we had a long notable wick coming right off of 290. We bounced off of it. We traded back down to it in the pre-market session on Monday, right around 1 o'clock. We saw the same exact thing, a little except a higher low here, a little bit above at 291. Kind of pushed up again, and then we pulled back and then tested 290 one more time, right? So I actually took this in the morning for the first kind of wick underneath 290. You guys can see it came to 288. I was hoping we would actually dig a little bit deeper. Let me take this off really quickly, overlapping the volume. I was hoping that we'd come down, stretch this up. I was hoping we'd come down into this spot here, right? So if you guys take a look, sorry, I had to sneeze. You guys take a look. The last bounce really was just a gap fill off of this here, right? So 284, this was that close from that massive, I think it was an earnings day, just a massive engulfing candle. We had an inside bar from there, still an inside bar, although that was an outside bar from the previous inside bar, and then we broke to the top of the range, filled this gap, went through a minor redistribution. I would consider this somewhat UTAD-ish if we're taking a look at this being a redistribution. And then now we kind of came back down to the bottom of the range. I was hoping for a 284 touch, maybe like a I couldn't really tell exactly where, maybe the open off of this at 286. So that's why I gave a range, like 281 to 285 I was looking to buy. But I did have that level marked, right around 290, just because it was a notable spot in that pre-market session. And it wicked underneath it just a little bit in the beginning of the morning. I took it on my phone. I had 5 contracts, and the reason I wasn't alerting guys, I had 1 bar, and like I couldn't see charts, and I'm not going to take an alert and put jeopardize my money, or just kind of put thoughts out there that couldn't work, and I couldn't tell you if they're not working or if I stopped out. Just didn't want to take that risk, so I gave the idea that like, hey, 300 calls could work here. But it didn't alert the first portion of that trade. I made about 640. I was up like 720 at the highs, but managed to get out like right around here as it started to break back down. But I got in kind of underneath this wick here. A little bit earlier than I would have liked, but I took 5 cons, wasn't too much size or anything crazy. And then from there, right, we can kind of just take a look from a Fibonacci perspective. We had, a low that was made on significant volume after the opening print. And then from there, we made a significant high, I would say. We obviously broke through the orb high. I was just looking for this to maybe respect the 618. Wasn't putting too much thought into it, which is why I didn't take it the first try. Then we pressed up. Could have gotten a lower high here. We pressed down. That was the bear's opportunity for a lower high to make a lower low, or at least get closer to the low of the day. And instead, large wick here, right, with higher volume. We ended up pressing back above. We got a really tight consolidation of price action, right, with those very, very small spreads on the 15-minute candles. They were tiny, guys. These were very, very tiny. And then we kept breaking back underneath that But you guys can see they would close back above, or if it did close under, it wasn't much extension underneath the 618. If it did extend under the 618, we usually got something like this with a long wick and higher volume. So finally, right, it pushed up, came right back to this lower high, or what you would consider a lower high, and then it pulled down again. And I was trying to see if we can either get a 618 touch again, maybe wick underneath this these two spots here, I guess 3 spots actually, right here, right here, right here, and then wick back above on high volume once again, something similar to this or this. And instead, kind of pulled down, didn't have the high volume that I would have liked, but then we open right here, and I was like, okay, we're kind of establishing a floor right around 291.59, which is that 618 spot. So I ended up grabbing my position right here, and then we got a nice little markup. Nothing super crazy, but we ended up pushing all the way up. We broke out through this little, you could call this a downtrend line. I don't know. I'm not going to call it a downtrend line, but since we didn't really move too much and we were consolidating in this range, but we broke through what I would consider just, micro resistances. There was that little portion here. There was this one here, but we got a big move through that, I would say, on higher volume. And then it ended up selling at the end of the day, but as we pressed through that spot and we got somewhat close to the high of day, I took trims right around 20%, and I kind of messed up. I'm not going to lie. I probably should have held 3 to 5 contracts. I closed this down to 1 contract. Goal was to hold the last portion of it, which was 5, overnight, and I didn't do that because I had interest in QQQ as well, which I will show here in a second. But yeah, happy with the win. I took a trade here and then a trade down here as well. All low risk. The premiums are moving decently well. Like I said, for how small of a move this really was, in retrospect, it was a nice 20% win. So I will take that. I feel like for a lot of the stuff that I've been doing, I am getting moves on my contracts. I'm just not getting target to target moves that I'm used to seeing that are normal for me. Which are big moves from a daily perspective, a weekly perspective, where I can carry from level to level. Once it hits like a TP or a take profit level, I can kind of then trim that and then roll into a different strike as it, let's say it creates a lower high on lower volume, or it ends up bull flagging or creating a divergence on a pullback for a higher low, things like that. I haven't really been able to do. So any of these like smaller time frame day trades that are contrary to my macro beliefs, which I do think there's a big shortcoming, I'm taking profits a lot quicker, if you guys haven't noticed. So, 20% on that, not bad at all. The previous one I got 28%, so this was good. And then I was hoping to get some kind of gap up overnight, right? I was looking for a move, I would say somewhere through this, right? You can always just take a Fibonacci level through this as well. If you just even pull it from a simple spot here from that previous that close down into the lows from that pre-market, you could expect maybe a move back up to the 0.6, right, or the 618, which is a 61% retracement of the move. If you guys want to take a 0.50 just to get to a discount perspective, that's where I got the idea from for a 300 call, just a 50% retracement through that sell-off, which would be right around 301.92. I felt like 300 was a sweet spot for that. Yeah, and obviously you guys can see now in kind of the overnight session, this is now basing yesterday, or I guess today's high, which is what I was looking for, right? So this is still in play. I know I put in the chat that I don't think this is in play now because this started to look good as it was breaking out right around like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. But this now pulled back where we have an opportunity here. If it can hold here, right, let's say in pre-market or something like that, I do think that there's a chance here for us to get back and add some more size back into the 300 calls and then look for a push up to 300, 301, right? So that's still in play. Nice little trade on that one though, just to boost the stat line, if you will. And we can remove some of these levels now. All we're really concerned with, in my opinion, is just a move over is it right around here, right, which is Monday's high. Super easy. Trying to trade with the flows here going into OPEX, which I don't know if I said it in this clip, but VandeCharm is now back. Started today, and it's here until this the 18th / the 21st. I think it's actually the 18th. So yeah, that's the next OPEX. And this, like I said, this looks like a redistribution, so we could always trade this back up. I would expect maybe at the most it gets back to 315.42, so we get some kind of press back all the way up. This ends up being a lower high, and then we get a breakdown further to this little gap down here, right? And a lot of people don't understand that gap actually didn't fill. It was very close. we have that gap, and then we have this gap down here, right? So that's going to be 237. I do think Tesla's in somewhat of a redistribution here. So very interesting chart. I am going to be watching to short the pops off of this, especially if we push into 315. But until then, I think that we can long as long as we're relatively close to today's high or kind of around the close. I think that's a good little trade there. And then let's take a look at one other thing. We're going to jump into QQQ. All right, last but not least is going to be QQQ. I didn't take this one, just, didn't want to take double exposure overnight. Probably would have been okay. As you guys can see, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 days up where we consistently gapped up overnight before we saw any kind of, gap down. And it would have been likely safe. It's just, I still think that we are in a UTAD, guys. Right here, I have it marked on my chart still. We're by climax, up thrust. Obviously, right here, let's just move this down. Right around there, right? And then obviously, this is what I believe to be the UTAD. It looks a lot more clean on QQQ, which I emphasized in a prior video. But, oh, something went in my eye. Yeah, I don't want to take two different positions overnight. I felt like Tesla was the one. As I said, I closed that down to one contract. I'm not too sure why I did that. It is what it is. But there's still an opportunity here, right? And if we are going to make a move back up, I still believe that a lot of these are just going to end up being lower highs, right? Especially as we're making our way back up into the highs here. You guys can see there was a pretty easy gap fill that we had as well, which was right around here. Let me delete my drawing where I think how it'll look. Let me get rid of those. But for the most part, this is really what I was expecting, was a bounce off of that gap from 7.2, which we pulled down into. We got a nice high volume hammer. Obviously, a lot of that was tied into tariffs, right? A lot of people will likely associate high volume with tariffs. I think a lot of that was obviously tied into that. There's no doubt about that. But Vonacharm now kind of returning back into the market for a simple buyback on simple pullbacks. I don't think it's anything more than that. So I should have maybe taken something off 550.79. I mentioned in the chat, like, hey, if this pulls back to 550.79, you guys could take calls here. Right into the close, we ended up getting this little flag, or this little higher low here, which is probably our first one, or our most significant one. Right here, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 candles, 5 candles. Before we got to press above the prior consolidation or the prior highs, where we rejected to come back down into that level. So that was probably the most opportune time. But then if we take a look here, I can just, hopefully you guys can answer this without me saying it right away. But where would you guys think like the next opportunity would be for calls, right? I don't think the pullback is going to happen, but it's always healthy to mark out your prior close, which is 552. Hell, it could happen. But what is the most likely area, right? Let's talk about targets first. So if we're going to target something, I think the most consistent one that we can always look for is an NWAG, right? So beginning of the week, do we gap down? Do we gap up? That should be your target. You should be looking for prior sweeps of equal lows, prior sweeps of swing lows, swing highs, whatever accumulation or distribution that you're looking at, and then looking for a trend, a higher low, a lower high, something to get in and then gauge risk versus a lower or high against, right? So in this case, we gap down, so we have an end walk to the upside. Simple target is a 555.82. So what we're looking for is high volume on the lows. Are we having a sloping accumulation? Do we have a flat bottom where we sweep under and close back above? Very simple. This one was kind of a sloping one where we made our way down. And obviously a lot of our high volume came from here, right? So the 915 candle, this was the tariff news where they were just dropping 40% tariff, 35% tariff, just over and over on multiple countries. Although they were smaller countries, still countries nonetheless, right? So nice little volume here that gave a little bit of a tell, long lower wick, which is extremely obvious, and then the high volume came off of that, right off of that gap. And then we undercut that gap a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of people went short onto that, or on that, and then we broke back above, and then we got our higher low, and now, in my opinion, shorts are now likely trapped here. So if they can get it back to break even, it would be right around here where we could see a short cover, maybe another effort to try to get it lower than that, but likely just stop out there and then look for longs if that is applicable. But the most likely scenario, in my opinion, would be just the open here, right? So you have to think, oh, that's the close, I'm sorry. So the open would be right around here, right? So 553.52. Let's actually snap this open, high-low close, just to make sure. Super easy, right? So if we're talking about an NWOG, go from the previous close, since we gapped down, to the open. Okay, so this is the unfilled gap. Everything else was whatever, right? But now we have an unfilled gap, technically from here to here, and we can just stretch this out. That's what I'm looking for, right? So some kind of extension above. Maybe it rejects off of yesterday's high, or I guess Monday's high. Does it pull back and give us an entry off of 553.52? Does it maybe come a little bit short of that, like right here? Maybe we can build a position. Let's say it does something like that, and then it sweeps under, right? We have enough room, and in the idea that it could happen, we're not shaken by the fact that it does something like that, and then maybe it builds out a consolidation, and then it starts to build out a trend, right? Something like that. Whatever it does, I think the open is probably the best spot. That is your NWOG open. So I'd be looking for price to consolidate here, pull back and hold here, whatever the case may be. We're looking for something that just is very simply this, and then looking for an extension, higher lows to build off of, right? And then obviously a base above Monday's high would be nice as well. So 554, if we can claim that, that'd be really nice. I assume it won't be just a straight pop through that. It might consolidate a little bit and then start to rip out. But yeah, what I'm really looking for is just to push back up to 555.82 to fill the NWOG close. If we do that, we'll see what the chart ends up looking like. Obviously, I still want to build into the short for January, but I want to try to get as close to the end of July going into August as I can. I don't want to build this out too fast in anticipation for something big. It never usually works. So just to clean this up, okay, just to make sure everything looks fine, I'm going to zoom this out really quick. Uh-oh, I zoomed out too much. There we go. So remember, open, technically the close is there, 556.22. We're looking for it to fill right around here. Okay, and then we can extend this out like a couple days. That's all we're looking for, right? We can keep the close there. I don't think this matters anymore, which is that gap that just filled. Super simple. Okay, same exact thing as I told you guys. Push down, hold, move up. That's all we're looking for. If we're just kind of going based off the daily candle, and then from there, we'll kind of see what it looks like once again around the 556.22 spot. Do we go a little bit higher? Do we make a new high? How high does it go above that high? Is it low volume? All the stuff that we typically look for. But yeah, that's really all it is, guys. That's really all it is. And I think that I think this right here was because the market ended up closing early. So I think this is technically all here is just after hours. So the actual close, yeah, is like right around here. That makes sense. But yeah, we'll see what it ends up looking like. And you know, if we can get this pullback here, and then we get a move from 553 to 556 by the end of the week, should be about like a 70% win, maybe like 15, 20 contracts, 25, 30 whatever, somewhere in that range. Should be a pretty good threshold to make some good money on. So those are my charts for the night. That's all I'm really looking at. Not too interested in anything else. Just Tesla, if it can maybe pull back. If it doesn't, that's okay. I have QQQ. QQQ, as I mentioned, does it push up? Does it hit maybe the 554 spot and then pull back down and hold 553, which is your NWOG open, and then give us an entry? Or does it, you know, just base 554? Let's say it just rips out, as I said. That could be an entry, and then be willing to build even more if it holds 553, if it kind of like consolidates and then drops and then starts to build out a trend here and then reclaims it, right? You want to have a little bit of cash to be able to build here. You want to build majority of your position at 553, right? And put on the bulk of your size. You don't want to be putting up your bulk of your size around 554. But I mean, it's all just dependent where we open at this point, because we are moving up here slowly but surely, right? We are now at almost, what's the move here? Like, yeah, about a quarter of a percent. So will be interesting to see what we open tomorrow, but that's really all I'm looking at. I will be able to trade, and obviously I have internet, so I should be able to alert everything and kind of walk through things step by step with charts, analysis, pre-market prep, things like that. And then on top of that, I have a couple things to announce, you guys kind of already know, I am going to be doing like live trading again. I'm still just getting stuff set up behind me. I have like my main trading stuff here, if you guys can't tell, that I'm using for like when I'm locked in trading. And I'm going to have a side monitor as well that I'll be using for like content and stuff like that. So this will be pretty cool to have going on. But yeah, definitely want to start to delve back into the live trading side of things, just because I miss it, but also I feel like I've been pretty distant. But at the same time, I've been a little bit distant because I've been trying to hone in on my trading, guys. Like a lot of my psychology, and I'm still like a young man, I guess. I'm 30, but like there's such an ego part of this that kicks in, and I feel like I'm so good, and then like I keep, for how good I think I am, I keep encountering the same problem where I see stuff so early, and I have such big opportunity to make a large amount of money, and like, dude, so that April bottom, for example, if you guys remember that, if I can just kind of go on a tangent, back here, if you guys remember, that's why I have this highlighted. You guys remember, this was actually on SPY, so let me go back to SPY really quick. Yeah, so right over here, you guys remember, I pretty much caught right in this realm, right? I obviously caught the April 7th bottom. I caught this realm here. I had like almost 400 contracts, guys, which is insane for May 16th. And I was betting on 565, if you remember. I got stopped out on this. I didn't get stopped out, but I took profits on this move here, right? I took profits on this move here. I don't know why I did it. And like I just keep going through these little things where I'm so close. And like that is the breakthrough in trading. Like the breakthrough in trading is like is all in your head. It's not anything on charts, and obviously charting plays a huge role in it, but in understanding what to look for and finding your setup and then waiting for that moment to strike. But once you see that, like bet the barn, dude. Bet the barn. Like, and obviously don't lose out the entire barn, but have confidence in it. See it, for level to level, and have fucking confidence in yourself. Because dude, like you guys never, I haven't done it either, like in a long time. I'll be honest. It's been a while where I had something like this. I mean, where I had the 618 pretty much timed. It ends up pushing out. And I remember I was up like 60% or something like that, but because the contracts are so far out of the money, and because they were May 16th as well, that little pullback, this little wick right here, took me from like 60% to only plus 15%. And I remember I closed it and I made like 30 grand, and I thought I had such a good trade, but then it gapped up, right? It gapped up, opened here, went higher. That was like 120K, and then it didn't even breach back really into the gap, right? From like the close, it didn't do too much damage, and it went all the way to 565. I would have made almost $500,000. And that is my breakthrough. Is just like, and I'm right there. I've had it with some trades, but I want to be able to hit it with every single trade. And like sometimes I just feel like I have to kind of isolate myself and not be too caught up into what people are saying, what people think. I have to lose and win in my own ways, because my breakthrough is truly winning my way, which is having these big, big pitches, carrying it level to level, having size into it, not letting anything get in my head, and yeah, capitalizing on it, because this was a big one. I don't even want to look at the chart. MU was a big one. Obviously, this one was a lot harder. You guys remember, like I was trying to trade this entire range here, and then I had my stop loss at 81.5, which was like a gap down here. If you guys remember, it just knifed through the gap. It consolidated here all through April, and it had the same bottoming formation as SPY did, but I had already closed out my shares and everything like that at that point. I took my eyes off of it, but in reality, right, from the April, I guess we can just say if we caught the entire bottom, like, dude, that was a 110% move. It went right to my target, guys, and it hit my target at 127, and it sold off, like, pretty drastically and right away. So, like, that's how I know I was right on that. But that was another trade, right? There's been so many trades where, like, I'm right there, and my breakthrough is just, like, the psychology in my brain, trusting myself, taking my time with trades, and just kind of like blocking everything out. So I've been kind of doing that. If you guys haven't noticed, that's why I'm not absent. I'm still here in the chat, but it's just like I'm trying to refine my edge and refine my psychology and refine just my process, man, and being able to have these massive wins and these massive trades, because they are difficult, especially if you're going to have size in this stuff. It's very, very hard. Like on MU, for example, guys, like I had people in my DMs when I was buying in here that were telling me this was going to go to 40 bucks, 40 bucks, 30 bucks. I suck at trading. This is a redistribution, or somebody was saying all kinds of stuff to me. And then when it breaks 81, right, and it comes down into the 60s, what do you think I think? Like, I almost want to abandon my thesis. Like, okay, this guy's right. But, it was just an undercut, right? If we just take a look at it on like the higher time frames, obviously a nasty weekly, but this weekly was on low volume, right? And I should have noticed that. And if we go take a look at the monthly, that monthly was just a disgusting wick. Some of the highest volume that we've seen on this that went underneath to a gap at 74, right? So just like taking my time with things, really having my breakthrough, and just holding stuff and taking things level to level, and just I've really refined my criteria, which is a big thing too. I don't just take anything. Pretty much everything is a mean reversion or an accumulation or a distribution. And I told you guys the next big one, in my opinion, is either NVIDIA, SPY, or Meta, right? And I'm gonna hit it. And I promise you, I'm gonna hit it, and I'm gonna hit it with size. I just have to be patient, and yeah, I just gotta trust myself, whether I win or lose, and that's part of the game, is just doing it my way. So sorry to go on the tangent. Just like I just wanted to talk about why I've been like quieter, why I haven't really been talking all that much. I still post my stuff, I still do recaps, I still try to like give you guys the authenticity and the transparency. It's just, if I'm gonna have this breakthrough moment where I just start hitting big win after big win, and making these insane, like I could have made my year with 2 trades, like guys, or even just 1 trade. And like I'm trying to get to that point, and that point is very, very hard mentally to achieve, and you have to kind of tap into a new level. And yeah, that's just my goal. So that's gonna be it. I've been talking for a while. I'm getting tired too. I think I'm delusional. Appreciate you guys as always for listening, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and conclude it there. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the QQ and or Tesla trade. Just depends where we gap up at and kind of where we end up opening. And then yeah, we're gonna see what happens with SPY. So all right guys, appreciate it.